IELTS Speaking Test Practice, Band 7. Topic: Transportation. Part 1. How do you usually travel to work or study?
Generally, I commute by subway because it's the most reliable mode of transport in my city. The traffic congestion during rush hour can be horrendous, so taking the train ensures I'm not late, even though it can get a bit cramped at times.
How do you usually travel to work or study? Is there any mode of transportation you dislike using?
I'm not particularly fond of taking buses, primarily due to their unpredictability. Unlike the subway, buses are subject to traffic jams, and I often find the ride quite bumpy and uncomfortable, which makes it hard to read or relax.
Is there any mode of transportation you dislike using? Do you think transportation in your country has improved in recent years?
Yes, significantly, the government has invested heavily in infrastructure, particularly in expanding the rapid transit network. We've also seen the introduction of electric buses, which are not only quieter but also much more eco-friendly compared to the old diesel ones.
Do you think transportation in your country has improved in recent years? How do you think people will travel in the future?
I imagine that autonomous vehicles will become the norm. We're already seeing prototypes of driverless cars, and I suspect that within a few decades, owning a private car might become obsolete as people switch to shared, automated transport pods.
How do you think people will travel in the future? Would you like to travel in a driverless car?
Absolutely, the idea intrigues me. It would arguably be safer since human error is the leading cause of accidents. Plus, it would transform the commute into leisure time where I could catch up on work or simply sleep.
Would you like to travel in a driverless car? Do you think flying cars will ever become a reality?
It's a fascinating concept, often seen in sci-fi movies, but I'm skeptical about its widespread adoption in the near future due to safety and regulatory hurdles. However, we might see some form of air taxis or drones for transporting goods before we see personal flying cars.
Do you think flying cars will ever become a reality? Part 2. Describe a futuristic mode of transportation you would like to try. You should say what it is, how it works, where you would like to go with it, why you would like to try this mode of transportation.
I'd like to talk about the Hyperloop, which is a concept for a high-speed transportation system that has been generating a lot of buzz recently. Essentially, it involves passengers traveling in pods through a low-pressure tube at airline speeds. As for how it works, the theory is that by removing most of the air from the tubes to reduce friction and using magnetic levitation, these pods can travel at speeds exceeding 1,000 kilometers per hour. It sounds incredibly futuristic, almost like teleportation compared to our current trains. Visually, I imagine it to be very sleek and aerodynamic, quite similar to a bullet train but completely enclosed within a tunnel system. If I had the chance, I would love to take a Hyperloop journey across a vast distance, perhaps from Los Angeles to San Francisco, or maybe across Europe. The idea of covering hundreds of kilometers in mere minutes is mind-boggling. The main reason I want to try it is the sheer efficiency and the technological marvel of it. I've always been a tech enthusiast, and experiencing travel that eliminates the drag of air resistance and friction feels like stepping into the next century. Moreover, it promises to be a sustainable alternative to flying, which is crucial for our environment. It would be thrilling to experience that level of speed on the ground.
Describe a futuristic mode of transportation you would like to try. You should say what it is, how it works, where you would like to go with it, why you would like to try this mode of transportation. Part 3. How will future transportation technologies impact the environment?
I believe the impact will be overwhelmingly positive as we transition away from fossil fuels toward electrification and hydrogen power. Carbon emissions will drop drastically. Technologies like high-speed rail and potentially the Hyperloop are far more energy efficient than short-haul flights, which should significantly reduce our carbon footprint.
How will future transportation technologies impact the environment? What are the potential drawbacks of relying on autonomous vehicles?
One major concern is cybersecurity. If a city's transport network is entirely digital, it becomes vulnerable to hacking or system failures, which could cause chaos. Additionally, there's the ethical dilemma of how an AI makes decisions in life or death situations, not to mention the potential job losses for professional drivers.
What are the potential drawbacks of relying on autonomous vehicles? Do you think the government should restrict private car ownership to reduce pollution?
That's a contentious issue. While restricting cars would undeniably clear the air and reduce congestion, it feels like an infringement on personal freedom. A better approach might be to incentivize public transport use or make owning a car prohibitively expensive through taxes, rather than an outright ban.
Do you think the government should restrict private car ownership to reduce pollution? How might city planning change if we move to a fully automated transport system?
Cities could be redesigned to be much more people-centric. We wouldn't need vast areas dedicated to parking lots since autonomous cars could drop passengers off and then park themselves remotely or continue to the next passenger. This would free up huge amounts of urban space for parks, housing, and pedestrian zones.
How might city planning change if we move to a fully automated transport system? Is space travel likely to become a common form of transport for the general public?
In the short term, no, it is currently the domain of the ultra-wealthy. However, as technology advances and costs come down similar to the history of commercial aviation, it might become accessible for tourism, but as a daily mode of transport, I think that remains firmly in the realm of science fiction for now.
Is space travel likely to become a common form of transport for the general public? Why are some people resistant to adopting new transportation technologies?
People are naturally resistant to change, especially when it involves safety. Letting go of the steering wheel and trusting a computer to drive requires a massive leap of faith. There's also a nostalgia factor. Many people enjoy the act of driving and view their car as a symbol of independence, which they are reluctant to give up.
Why are some people resistant to adopting new transportation technologies? End of practice.